And I would say one thing I think it's important for people to know is you don't have to be an expert on the subject matter to be an effective educator or mentor or teacher or leader. I mean, especially for men, I think a lot of men feel like there's a really high bar, like you can't really talk about subjects like this unless you really, have taken courses in university, if you, read all these books and done all this training. And if that's the bar, I think a lot of men will just then retreat and say, no, I'm not really qualified. I think it's important, but I can't really do it myself. And I don't think that's a fair bar. I don't think that that's what we're asking people to do, to be as experts. I think we need to be in a position where, like you use the word vulnerability, but I would say we need to be able to say, you know what, I don't know all the answers. Like, for example, if a young person asks a question and you don't know what to say, then say, you know what, that's a really good question. I'm not exactly sure how to answer you, and I'm going to get back to you on that. And then you can, as an adult, I'm talking about as a youth worker, you can talk to colleagues, talk to Linda, pick up a book, go online and get the answer. And the next time you see the kid, the next day or 2 weeks later, say something. You don't have to pretend that you're this expert filled with knowledge. You're on a journey as well. In other words, you as a youth worker. I'll give you an anecdote from my own experience that's sort of related to this. I do a lot of trainings, and I have been doing this for a long time. And one of the people, one of the groups that I've been working with for 30 years is athletic, officials and coaches. And I was doing a training for an elite university in the East Coast of the United States athletic department. We have big university athletics is a big deal here in the States. And there was a young guy, he was a coach, a soccer, you call it football coach. And he at the university level, but he also taught young, he coached young 14-year-olds in a youth, football league. And he recounted an experience that he had recently, where a young guy on his team had used the word rape in a really inappropriate way, right? So he had talked about, raping this team or something totally inappropriate. And the coach was saying to me, I was so frozen by what he had said. I couldn't believe that he just said that. And I didn't say anything because I was so taken aback, and I was, I couldn't figure out what to say. So I didn't say anything. And he thought that he had missed an opportunity, and he felt bad. The coach was saying he felt badly about this. And I said to him, okay, are you still the coach? And he said, yes. And I said, well, what about going back to the team and saying to them, a couple of weeks ago, one of you guys used the word rape in a way that I thought was completely inappropriate, and I didn't really know what to say. And I was taken aback, and now I've thought about it, and I want to say, I think it's and then go on to say, I think it's inappropriate. We shouldn't use terms like that. That's trivializing incredible abuse, and we have to go in the opposite direction. We have to be more sensitive and thoughtful about how we use language. But the point is, he thought he had missed the opportunity just because he hadn't said it right at the moment that the kid made that comment. That, to me, was easily correctable by just making the point that I made, right? And it's related to this point that we're all on this sort of journey, and you don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to know every answer. And by the way, this vulnerability question, I would never present myself as being this fully evolved man who's got it all figured out. That's absurd. And people who know me personally would think it's absurd if I was to say that I was such a person. I don't think that that's the goal or the standard. I mean, I think we're all working towards being better people, but it's the same with white people and racism. For a white person to say, I have no racist bones in my body whatsoever, there's no racism in me, it means that white person hasn't done the most minimal anti-racist training or understanding or introspection, because it's impossible to say as a white person that you have no racism in your bones, because it's so deeply encoded into our psyches from the earliest ages. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that that's how racism works. It's same with sexism. So boys and men who have their own sexist attitudes and beliefs, because by the way, a lot of adult men will say, who am I to tell others to act in a certain way or to behave in a certain way around gender-related subject matter like sexism or misogyny? Who am I to say that? Because I myself have some of these beliefs that I know are problematic, that I know that that I would be held accountable for if people knew about. And so a lot of guys will say, well, therefore, I'm not authorized to speak to anybody else and teach them if I myself have stuff that I'm still working on. And again, I would say this again. if you're waiting for a man to be perfect and perfectly non-sexist before he's authorized to speak out about sexism, we're going to be waiting forever. No one's going to say anything, because no man can say, I don't have any sexism in me. So it's the honesty and the strength, if you will, to be able to say, you know what, I get some stuff too. I'm working on it too. But that doesn't mean I'm going to be silent, because I know what's wrong, and I know I'm going to speak up. And you don't have to say it self-righteously. By the way, young people can see right through self-righteousness. You don't say it self-righteously. You say, we're all trying to struggle with this. And I'm helping you, for example, maybe do better than I did when I was your age. Because you know what? When I was your age, I didn't have these conversations. I also didn't have an iPhone to get to access the whole world at my fingertips. But I also would have benefited from adults, especially in this case, adult men, giving me some guidance about how to navigate some of this space. And you know what? You guys have that opportunity, because guys in my generation have been exposed in a way that we can be maybe better teachers and mentors than maybe we got mentored ourselves.